whenever we finish. And we're started. We're live. What's up, guys? It's Ted Boger with the Ted Show. We have returning alumnus, really great friend of mine, longtime friend, Aaron Ludin. What's up, Aaron?
What's up, y'all?
How you doing?
Glad to be
Super
on the
excited to have
virtual
you
Ted
back
Show.
on. I've been wanting to have you back on since, pre-COVID, all the stuff you had going on in your life. And update, you always have great insights. And so it's been a while. You're one of my first guests ever. And so it's good to have you back. So you got lots of love already showing
Love it.
on some of my platforms.
I
All
feel
right,
like
so
I photobombed one of your
tell us
first.
a little bit about you for the people who don't know.
Man, where do you want me to start? That's such a loaded
In the beginning,
question. No. In the beginning, it's time. So I was born. So basically, I run a few different businesses that work with the real estate community. About 10 years ago, I started selling closing gifts here in the Central Florida area. I built a team that was as large as 8 people, and we used to each sponsor about 100 events a year all throughout the real estate community. So that's office meetings, that's local, regional, and state, and then also national. So either myself or my colleagues from other parts of the country would be at every major company's national convention as well. And so we spent the year just sponsoring everything and pitching our closing gifts and getting agents enrolled in the program, and built that all across the state. And then a few years back, ended up launching Orlando Real Producers. My counterpart in Indianapolis had seen a lot of success with Real Producers in Indianapolis. We had launched 5 other markets that were really starting to pick up steam. And their company basically restructured and gave me the green light to launch Orlando, and now we're on our 43rd issue. And so it's been going amazing. We have a publication, we do quarterly events, and we do monthly masterminds for the top 500 real estate agents in the city, as well as regular educational events that basically bridge the gap between the top 500 agents and the rest. And so we're just getting started, but the community is thriving right now, and I'm just super excited to see, all the growth and all the success over the last few years, and who knows what the future will bring.
I want to talk about Orlando Real Producers, of course, and I want to talk about your branding company, marketing company. But I want to ask you, pre-COVID, you had some crazy stuff happen. So I'm going to let you tell the story, because I think it's interesting. When we first started to get word that something had happened, that you were not well, you can imagine what the rumor mill was at that time. And I still hear some of the exact same things. So one of the things I would love for you to do, whatever you're comfortable with, share a little bit about what happened and the process that you had to go through to get back here.
Yeah, I know everyone was saying I was in a mental institute or drug rehab. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally
I heard both of those for sure.
Totally joking.
So, yes.
But no. So basically, I had been in Breckenridge, Colorado at the very end of January. It's funny, I just taught a seminar. We had 50 or 60 people. David Buckles and I just taught a social media mastery event. The next morning I woke up at 4 a.m. I flew out to Denver, drove over to Breckenridge. And long story short, we don't exactly know what happened because I had been asleep and everyone was outside cooking. And at some point, I fell down the stairs and hit my head. And we don't know if it was altitude. We don't know if I was sleepwalking. We don't really know. But I woke up in the hospital about 2 weeks later, and I had a brain injury. I had been knocked unconscious. I was found unconscious. I was in the hospital for several days. I was in the hospital on a breathing tube and a feeding tube for 2 days. I was strapped down to the bed and restrained from being able to move or pull anything out for about 8 days. And I was in the ICU for 17 days before my friends basically all stepped up. One of my friends started a GoFundMe. A lot of people watching this, thank you for you guys helped bring me home. So I was airlifted back to Florida and checked into Halifax Health, was there for a couple of days before I checked out to basically go into home rehab, and now have been in cognitive therapy and a few other things that I do regularly. But for the most part, I'm back to normal. I would say, as well as you can be. Obviously, brain injuries are never totally perfect, and you never really know when they're perfect. There's not a test, if you will. But I'm doing really well and feeling really good and really blessed to be here and to be alive.
You seem good, and that's
great.
good.
I almost died. I could have died.
Right.
I could have been stuck there longer. I could have been stuck there during COVID. Honestly, the hospital had me on a lot of drugs, and I don't really know what they were giving me, but I don't remember the first 16 days out of 17 days in the ICU. And the last day is the day they stopped giving me the drugs. That's the only reason I remember it. And that's the only reason I remember Halifax, is because apparently they missed a form that was supposed to get there so that I couldn't be on the drugs in Florida. And so that's really the only reason I recovered so quickly. It's the only reason that I was able to process things and start to make improvement. And honestly, they would have kept me there many more weeks, probably through COVID. And who knows like what that would have done to my brain or my ability to come back. So I'm just really blessed and happy to be here. And I don't know, it's really hard to like not just have a smile on my face and be like, well, I almost died. So the stuff I'm worried about or stressed about or whatever, in the grand scheme of things, like it doesn't all, I don't know, it just doesn't all matter.
Well, I think it's given you perspective, but what I love about you sharing your story, and you've done this on your social media, is that you talk about how some ways that you respond, some behavior that you have has been impacted by the brain injury. Will you tell them a little bit about specifically, because you talk about it, frontal lobe a lot.
Yeah. So to be fair, like I'm not even sure like where it starts and where it stops. I don't know what issues are really related to the injury and what issues might be other things. Like, for example, we've been in quarantine. Like that's also, I've been ADHD since I was in, I don't know, first or second grade. So the truth is a lot of these symptoms are exactly the symptoms of ADHD. We have no idea if it's just like me being myself or me dealing with the brain injury, just to be fair. But I will say that what I've noticed in the beginning was I was really tired. I was really tired all the time. And then when I wasn't tired all the time, I was tired completely sporadically. There was no rhyme or reason. It had nothing to do with how much I slept, what time of day it was, any pattern whatsoever. It was completely unpredictable. When I was done, I was like actually done. It didn't matter if it was 11 a.m. It didn't matter if it was noon. It didn't matter if it was midnight. Like if it hit me, it hit me. I had to immediately go upstairs and go to sleep. So that lasted, I don't know, a couple of weeks. The same, what's funny is, for about a week, I like couldn't stop drinking juice, like tons of juice. I don't drink juice at all. So I'm drinking like these giant things of juice, and I'm like never have my thirst quenched. So I don't know if that's like blood sugar being low or who knows, but that stopped eventually as well. And so yeah, anyway, I forgot where we were.
What was it like when you finally got back on your feet? Because you took obviously you had time, recovery time, you had time in ICU, then you had the transport time, you had to come back here, you had to do rehab. What was it like when you were finally able to have your first meeting, have your first phone call? Because you're so passionate about your work, I imagine that was difficult for you to not be able to talk on the phone or to have a meeting or to book something.
It was weird. I mean, one of the biggest things was while I was in the hospital, while I wasn't completely cognitive, I was partially speaking gibberish and partially really concerned with the same couple things. So I would continue day by day. My memory was awful. So I would ask, where's my dog? And they'd be like, he's at home in Florida. Where's my rental car? I had a rental car. It's parked in. They're like, your rental car was returned like 9 days ago. Can someone call Real Producers and tell them I'm not going to be at the conference in Charlotte? They're like, the conference ended 4 days ago. We called them already. And the other thing was masterclass. We've got to plan the next masterclass. And the magazine, like knowing that I had responsibilities and needing my team members. And Nikisha really stepped up and did a lot of it. Jose, that's my personal assistant, stepped up and did a lot of things. And so they planned like the next publication, the next educational event. They booked a guest speaker. They booked a hotel for him. They flew him in. They did the promotion. They pushed it out. They did the next major party we did. So like everything was kind of handled. And my family took my phone away. The doctors wouldn't let me use the phone because of the stimulation. And so at some point, I guess I just kind of accepted I'm not doing anything. I can't do anything. I'm not going anywhere. I'm only here to recover, and nothing can work if my brain doesn't work anyway, was kind of like the realization.
Well, it needed rest. It needs that recovery, the brain.
Literally, needed to sleep enough.
Yeah, I mean, it was so great when we first started to get, like, when I could see you back on social media, you could tell that you were back sort of in control of what you were doing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were always in control, but you could tell when you came
And
back.
probably more so than it looked. Like I did a Facebook Live where I was explaining myself, but people kept hopping on. And so I kept starting over. And so I don't know how many dozens of people have been like, well, you were repeating yourself a lot. So I wasn't repeating myself because my brain didn't work. I just wasn't good enough at explaining, like, oh, I'm going to say this again because more people jumped on. Like I wasn't clear enough, which probably is different. Like I would have done that better now. But I find it funny. People thought I just like had a terrible memory and was just repeating myself. And I just kept thinking like 50 new people just jumped on. I might as well say what I just tried to tell them. So anyway, it's but yeah, it's been a process. And the other things were, there's definitely other nuanced differences. So being tired a lot, being more irritable at times. They told me I would be more impatient and have less judgment. I don't know that it's less judgment the way I expected, like having poor judgment, but it's harder to make judgment calls, meaning like to decide between two things that don't have a right answer. So for example, like determining what the topic of our next masterclass is going to be, it really challenges me. Determining which person to pick for the next cover is way more challenging than it ever used to be. Sitting down and writing out a simple email is a lot more challenging than it used to be. So there's definitely like nuanced differences, but they're judging between things, not judging like what's right or wrong or appropriate or inappropriate, I would say.
Where do you think your passion for the real estate community comes in? How did you, because you're so enmeshed, I think everyone knows, I think I saw when I was scrolling through today, you were at Cliff's office at Aura. You're very involved in the community, but you have a passion for it. It isn't just the dollar sign. You have a real passion. Where did that come from for the real estate community?
It's interesting. I would say there's probably a few places. One is just because I've built my business around the real estate community for so many years, building a closing gift business that serves several hundred agents every single year, or several thousand agents. Usually I think we served about 2,200 agents in our best year. And so, and they're regularly, like loyally ordering. So a lot of people watching this, like they order closing gifts every 5 or 6 months, some of them once a year whenever they run out. And so I've just been really passionate about servicing those people and serving them and teaching them. And what I really think it stems from though, is how much of the business overlaps with my experience at Cutco. Through college and through high school. So really, if you even, we can go as far as training, like basic training at Cutco is almost identical to about a third of the Bold program at Keller Williams. Like basic training at most brokerages, how to make like at Cutco, they teach you how to make a list of initial people. So friends and family and whatnot, how to qualify that list, they give you a script, how to call them and book and do appointments. They give you a script on how to close deals, how to get referrals. So all of these parts of building a business are actually really similar, and even funnier, they're in the same neighborhoods. So, I paid my way through college, literally selling in the same kitchens, often that the same agents are doing a listing presentation at, and I have to work only off referral. There's no bot leads. There's no Zillow. There's no house call leads. They're like, everything is only a name and number someone else gave me. And I had to sell enough to earn a 6-figure income each year. And so it took a lot of appointments. It took a lot of sales, and it took a lot of salesmanship, and it took a lot of networking and really getting to know the city pretty well as well. And so just so much of our business overlaps, even though they sound nothing alike. And real estate is way more complex of a business, and it has way more higher of a ceiling. People can really build like a wealth generationally and stuff. So like, it's definitely not the same, but the basics that I was doing are the same basics that a brand new agent would be doing. And so I think there's a passion for the fact that the expertise, like when I was teaching Cutco reps, I could go teach on referrals, on phone calls, on prospecting, on salesmanship, on closing, like the same classes I could teach to reps in my organization. I could basically go and teach at real estate offices, and they were well received. And then I guess that was really like the big thing. And then also just respecting that they're in a similar business where you're basically in an outside sales business. There's nobody looking over your shoulder. You've got to build your own business. You've got to also retain your clients on your own with your own decisions. And often there's not a lot of training on how to do that. And so I always felt like I have a perspective of what it takes to get my clients continuously ordering Cutco knives, right? It's not like a normal thing for people to buy on a regular basis. And so, but people do buy homes every 5 to 7 years. And so if I can stay top of mind and stay in front of them, a lot of the practices were the same. And so I really think that's where it all stemmed from. And now just so many of my friends are in the real estate world. The people I love and care about most are in the real estate world. The people I trust and that trust me the most are in the real estate world. And for vendors, I've been in their shoes. Like I remember spending tens of thousands. I remember spending $30,000 or $40,000 a year sponsoring events from my own pocket. And at the time, you know, a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of people watching this have probably known me for 10 years now. They don't think about the fact that I'm 31 now, which means I was sponsoring their events when I was younger than some of their kids.
You were a baby.
I was buying, you know, everyone's lunch or spending $1,000 or spending $500 to be there. And I was doing it at all these offices year after year. So I just became really passionate about supporting the community that supported me, as well as I learned what it was like to be treated like a blank check, to not be respected as a vendor, to be treated, to have people that don't care about whether they bring value to you, to have events where they don't bring the producers, to like all the downsides of sponsoring real estate events, or the taboo parts of it, I wanted to resolve. And that's really what Real Producers was born from. I always say, you know, if there was something that was consistently gathering the top producing real estate agents in the city so that we could get in front of, get their attention and keep their attention, I would have never started it. But well,
I think what's interesting about you, and I want to talk about the building a community, to piggyback on that, is that you just don't throw the event. You want everything that you do with your networking. To me, you're the networking guru, right? I know you joke a lot of time, or you say it when you introduce me to people, Ted knows everybody, but I really believe you know everyone in addition to everyone I know. But that is such a gift, but it adds to everything that you're doing. It adds to the community, but a lot of people don't know how to network, Aaron. A lot of people don't know how to build that community. They don't know how to build the referral sources. So that was the title sort of the show, was about building an elite community. Let's talk about that, because I think you probably already could teach that class to a lot of people.
Love it. And not only that, I'll share this because this insight may be helpful for some people. I don't see myself as competing with someone like you when it comes to network. I not only don't have the network that's the size of yours, although you may flatter me and tell me that I do. I compete with where I can be at your age. Just being honest. I don't compete with where you're at. I compete with where I'm pacing. I didn't know you at my age, but I compete with, like, if I continue to do the right things and continue to do the same things, where would I be if I did this for another 10 or 20 years or however many years? I could keep compounding. That's like how I run my race. And because of that, people like yourself inspire me to stay active every day, knowing that I probably have a head start at some level. At least with most people, I don't want to speak, because I don't want to make assumptions, but I know that the number of people I'm bringing into the network, the number of relationships I'm building, and the depth that I'm going can only compound if I continue to do the right things. And so I look at what I see the results with someone like yourself, whose relationships are so vast and so deep, and people really do care so much, that I think, wow, if I just continue to do the right things, this is the type of path that I can be on, and maybe even be comparable. And if I'm lucky or do everything better than I'm doing them right now, if I ever learn to get better at it, maybe I'll even have extra benefits.
You already are further ahead of the game. Just so at 31, oh God, I can't even remember back then. I definitely did not have the network, but I understood the importance of it. And I think that's a big part of the challenge of building your network. A lot of people think they've got a solid network, and then there's nothing coming from it. There's nothing that's developing. Nothing's moving forward. A lot of people are in stagnant relationships as far as networking going. So how do you change that? How do people get out of that?
They need to stop having agendas. That's the problem. Everyone has a freaking agenda. They want to have a relationship with you because they want something out of it. They don't want the relationship with you because they value collecting more people in their network. Like my friend Curtis Lucy, he wrote the book Appreciation Marketing. And he always says, and I love quoting this quote, but it's his. In fact, right here, How to Achieve Greatness Through Gratitude. He wrote this book, and in it he says, relationships are the real currency in life. People that actually believe that, like yourself, they collect people. They build wealth in their relationships. They don't just try to stack up money or hit their financial goal or their political goal or their whatever goal they're working on. So most people, they haven't really accepted, like Zig Ziglar says, like you'll hit if you help more people achieve their, like you could be what is it? He says you can hit all of your goals if you help more people achieve their goals, or if you help enough people achieve their goals. Most people will say that, but they don't actually act in alliance with it. They act out of scarcity. They act like, yeah, I'd love to help you with your goals, but I'm so scared I'm not going to hit mine that I need to worry about my shit. You know? I need your help with my shit because I'm too worried about my shit. Excuse me.
Agreed.
That's essentially what people are doing. And so I've just taken the perspective of giving first, not measuring, not being tit for tat, not counting when it comes to relationships, not putting a price tag on any relationships. Like, I'll give you an example. When it comes to gifting, a lot of our clients used to have the attitude where they actually had a price tag on their most priceless relationship. So they would say, oh, I can spend $40 on a closing gift, but not $75. I like this idea, but $75 is too much. Well, can you imagine telling your spouse or your partner that you buy her a gift, but you didn't want to spend $75, you only want to spend $40? Can you imagine going to dinner and saying, oh, I was willing to cover dinner up to $120, but $150 is a little too much? Or can you going on a date and saying, hey, this dinner is a little out of budget, can you get the tip? You know, like, that's what I feel like so many business owners are doing, is they're putting a price tag on their most priceless relationships. So they find relationships that are going to exponentially grow in value over their lifetime, but they find a way to monetize, like to minimize the value because they're looking at the short-term value. So when it comes to, let's just say, real estate, now, granted, real estate, they make a few $1,000s a deal. So the truth is that should be enough. When I was making a few $100s a deal, I would spend $75 or $80
Correct.
or whatever on a client and not think twice about it. But I still see agents that make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and the $20 difference matters to them. But all that aside, there's people that put a price tag on the relationship and they don't realize they're missing out on the $45,000 average lifetime value of an average client because they cut the corner somewhere. It's the same thing with like trying to save on insurance. You save $20 a month here, but you get screwed when your whole house floods or whatever.
I think people,
you know, mine could have been a $100K bill.
You have the patience, I think, and your age is definitely helpful. Because I think people they want this immediate. If I take you to lunch, then I immediately need a loan, or I immediately need a referral. And I think that what you're saying, people don't spend any time. They don't know how to plant a seed and kind of let it grow. There are so many seeds that come back to me 10 years later. There are some that never come back to me in that seed, but they've introduced me to other seeds. And so I think people are waiting to
grow it. And honestly, if it's worthwhile, it's going to grow slow. Even if you move quick, right? It's like they say bamboo, you water it, and for 4 or 5, 6 years or something, doesn't move at all, and then it shoots up like 6 feet in a month or two, right? So it's the same thing. I think a lot of people, they are too short-sighted, and let's go one step further. They don't have the confidence to know that they're going to be around if they don't get the deals right now. And the reason, furthermore, is because they don't take consistent, necessary action enough to bank on it. So, like, for example, I'll be honest, like, this is going to sound insignificant, but look at this. In the last 6 years, I've read 300-something books. I read at least 50 books a year. I get up early. I focus on myself. I've hired dozens of coaches. I've been to thousands of seminars. I've spent hundreds of hours devouring information and hundreds, if not thousands of hours sitting down one-on-one with people just like you do at the Citrus Club, building relationships one-on-one. And so you got to pay your dues if you want to really build significant relationships. And so what I'm getting at is that there's a lot of people out there, they don't have that patience to really play the long game, and they don't have the confidence in what they're doing as a person to know they can bank on themselves. I'm thinking, like, if I meet enough people and I grow myself enough and I continue to stimulate myself and learn things, then everything's going to work out in the end. What doesn't matter is whether Ted's buddy at the table that he just introduced me to is going to pay my next bill or pay my mortgage next month. That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean shit to me. You know, Are they going to, so many people are so short-sighted, they don't realize it, but they're looking for their next paycheck, their next sale, or their next month of income because they're not coming from a place of abundance, because they're not
abundance, right? It's the abundance mindset. People, I could never do what you do, people will say, and I'm sure they've said that to you. I could never talk to that many people in a day. Well, why? Okay, so then set your goal. If you're only talking to one a day, talk to 5. Like, build something, do something that progresses you. And people get so caught up in the way that they've always done it and then wonder why they're not getting different results.
I'll be honest, I was very lucky. I stumbled across a job selling, Cutco knives in people's kitchens when I was 17. I made $6.40 an hour working at Hollister when I got referred over there. And I started to make $1,000 a weekend, $2,000 in a weekend. And so my senior year of high school, it was half senior year of high school, half freshman year of college, right? With the summer in between, I was able to earn over $50,000 that year selling these knives. And I was 18.
That's
that
amazing.
Totally changed my life. And not only that, the money wasn't the thing. It was the skill set that I learned, but the standard. Like, it set a standard. So at 19, I'm like, well, I'm not going to go backwards. I'm not going to try to make. So the standard of the level of activity, the number of phone calls, the level of growth, the level of taking my life seriously, not just like going and getting drunk or something, which obviously nobody was doing at 19, right? I was just much more serious about running a real business and moving places. And so that compounded over the years, year after year after year after year. So now at 31, I have a level of confidence that, honestly, when I meet people my age, they rarely have the same level of confidence at where their business is going, but also where their life is right now. Like, if you look around, like, I don't live in a mansion or anything, but I've owned this house for 10 years. Right. I bought this house at almost 21. And so I've been able to hang my hat on, not worrying about having a place to live, not having a goal someday of, what I'm saying? Like, just a level of stability that gave me a level of confidence in both the stability, but also the consistency. Like, I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep growing my business, growing my leadership, raising my leadership lid. And so, I've never had to worry about what's right in front of me, what closes now, who's happy now. I've always felt like if I do the right things and I meet the right people and build the right relationships, then I'm on the right track regardless. And so
I agree. And what do you want to do next? What do you want? I think people, I'm amazed sometimes. You've got Masterclass, you've got Orlando Real Producers, you have your gifts. What is the plan for all of that? What's next? Because I know you and you're always thinking ahead, I'm sure, even though you're keeping your thumb on the present. What are you doing? What's the plan for the future?
It's a great question. Well, so a couple things. We're working on a program that we're calling ORP 2.0. So I'm working on a relaunch of Orlando Real Producers. It's totally fine. It's doing great, but we're revamping all of our processes. We did a full audit of 7 different areas of the business, from onboarding to how we do events to how we communicate with clients. And we've got brand new programs and systems to roll out in all those areas. And a few new things we picked up from the pandemic, like doing virtual meetings once in a while. We're excited. And so my goal with that is to streamline the process better, create better interaction and introductions with people, only bring on the right partners, and then make sure that our people own the community. So that I want the community to own the community. So we're bringing on an advisory board. They're going to be in charge of curating some of the content. It's going to be less in my head and more in the hands of the group. So that's the immediate future. The long term, I've got a book that I've worked on for many, many, many years that I'm finally at the point of being ready to pick back up and finish it up and launch it. I took a bit of a hiatus when we started launching Real Producers because I was busy and I was crippled. So I wasn't.
Yeah, you've had a crazy time on the physical side, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting last few years. So I'm definitely excited to not only come out with a book, but honestly, I think I'm going to start making this a regular thing where I pump something out once a year. I've got probably 12 in my head and 3 scripted out. So I just want to keep continuing to write content and travel and inspire people and help people and teach the things that I've spent all these years learning. So that's really the next layer for me, is doing a little more speaking, a little more writing. And I'm very confident that you're going to see a book soon, and it probably will have a lot better perspective than it would have had if I had written it a few years ago.
What do you do to stay positive? And I'm not talking about Orlando Real Producers or business. I know you read a lot, and I love it because it's motivating. I actually read 2 books during COVID, mainly because I felt really far behind on Aaron's list. But what do you do to stay positive? What is your personal thing that you do?
A couple of things. I have a routine. So I'm of the belief that if you light yourself on fire, people will come to watch you burn. And if you've ever read the book, The One Thing, they say, what's the one thing that such by doing would make everything else irrelevant or unimportant? I think is basically, if not exactly, anyway. People always narrow it down to a minuscule behavior. So usually salespeople think it's phone calls or business people think it's leverage. They think their one thing is like a business strategy in a lot of cases. And I'm a big believer that if you've got 7 areas of your life you want to improve, and one is, let's say, health and fitness, and one is relationships, and one is your business, and one is your finances, then really there's probably 7 things. So we're sitting in a meeting years ago, and I asked Jay Papasan, who wrote that book, I said, Jay, what if you have 7 areas of your life or 6 areas of your life that you have a goal in? Or is it possible to have 6 things? And he said, absolutely not. He said, in dominoes, even if there's 6 lines, there's still one thing that lines up all the dominoes. Like there's still a line at one point and it splits into 2. So he said, so what's the one thing that lines up all the dominoes and all 6 or 7 goals? And I thought about it for about, 2 or 3 weeks. And you know what I came up with? How I start my day. What's the one thing that lines up all the dominoes is how I start my day. It makes me more likely, if I start my day inspired, motivated, empowered, and ready to roll, I'm going to take the right action more often. I'm going to show up more in my relationships. I'm going to be more inspired in my physical goals. I'm going to be more willing to show up at a gym, do whatever it takes. If I show up, not just like I'm positive, but Tony Robbins always says, like, there's a difference between, yeah, I'm positive, I'm good, and like, move out of my way, I'll handle this. That's called being empowered when you're in that move out of my way state. Yeah. And so I'm a big believer that my one thing is to light myself on fire every morning. If you light yourself on fire, people will come to watch you burn. So I get up early enough to light myself on fire, to have enough time to light myself on fire, to have enough time to do the things like scrolling on Facebook and whatnot, to be writing things that will also show people that I'm on fire. So that by the time I need to be burning, if you will, I already am, and I'm able to inspire and stay inspired through my day. And so to me, that's the biggest thing that really makes me me. And I think people can see that now that I've explained it. Like a lot of you watching this, if
so
you know,
good.
Get that.
That's so good. I've never thought about that, but I think the morning is for me, it's definitely sets the tone. But setting yourself on fire, I've got to think through that. I really love that analogy.
State. So my best days start where I'm like attacking my phone. I'm beating my phone up, as Grant Cardone always says. I'm beating the phone up before breakfast, and I'm inspired and I'm motivated. And I'm writing fired up stuff, and I have thoughts, and I listen to the same podcast. Like I listen to one of my mentors, Ryan Stewman, the Get Your Mind Right podcast, it's called Rewire now. Every single morning, it's a 5-minute podcast that's all fired up, inspired. And so like whatever it is for you, it doesn't have to be that podcast, but to actually get your day, start your day in an inspired state, like on a scale of 1 to 10 in a level of energy and excitement and enthusiasm. If you're below an 8, if you're an 8 or below, actually, you didn't start your day that well. Your day has got to start at a 9 or a 10, or the day is going to be a bit of a drag at some point, even if you thought you were quote unquote positive, And so I'm just a big believer. Not only does your day have to start like that, but really like your life, if it really comes down to it, your life's just a collection of how many minutes you lived and the number of minutes you spent in each state, or like level of excitement scale of 1 to 10, let's say, the number of minutes you spent at a 9 or a 10 determine the life you lived. I don't know about y'all, but I don't really want to spend that many more minutes below that number.
Agreed. You are such an inspiration. I mean that from the heart. I love and appreciate you. I love what you do. I want more people to get involved with what you do. If you'd have them and be part of that community, they can learn from you. You speak, you do all sorts of things for the community as a whole. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Find me on Facebook, Aaron Ludin, spelled just like it says below right there. Or you can do Aaron at OrlandoRealProducers.com. That's AARON at OrlandoRealProducers.com. Fantastic.
Thanks, buddy. It always goes by fast when you're on. I appreciate you so much. You guys reach out to Aaron. He's awesome. And Orlando Real Producers is amazing. You do a lot of great work, man. I appreciate you.
All your support personally and the home team support. And we look forward to doing more with you guys soon.
Love you, man. All right. We'll talk to you soon. You guys have a great night. We'll be back.